graffiti itself, the word was used back in the day to define like scratching on a surface. And then when it had a surgence in Philadelphia and New York in the subculture of, you know, wild style, and the media was the one that brought that word back out and said, these guys, look at them, they're graffiti, you know, vandals. At the really bottom foundation of it, we're really calligraphists that expanded. Some guys got into art because automatically you felt you were doing art, being creative, expressive. You could tell somebody, yeah, I'm a writer. And if they don't know what the hell you're talking about, they think you're writing for a book, a magazine, or whatnot. At the end of the day, graffiti has a negative connotation to it because it's still just saying that you never elevated out of something that was just a scratching on a wall.
I think it's just the early stages of a new fascination with painters and painting and the process of painting.
I think it's the impulse. It's the idea that, like, we're willing to, like, go off at any time. We're not cooped up in some studio just sort of, like, hiding the way we work. I mean, we're willing to share that process as well as the finished piece. Sometimes I think that process, at least for me, is maybe even more valuable than the piece itself.
My name is Other, and I paint on trains, freight trains. It's a very old tradition that started a long time before people were painting on the trains in New York City or any of that. Most people call it monikers. Jack London writes about it in a book that I think he wrote in 1890. It takes place in Montreal. And he says he saw this one guy's Monica. It's spelt all different, like Monica, the name Monica. I wish I knew what yard it was in Montreal, because I'm always thinking maybe Jack London was here in 1890 carving his name on a wooden train with a jackknife somewhere. Oldest reference I can find of carving on trains or leaving an initial on a train by hobos is in that book. I mean, I still see monikers today and I go, okay, that guy's still around. There's a 04, that's this year. He's still doing it, he's still somewhere out there. A little message in a bottle. Just from being around people that paint trains, I painted a couple and I didn't really care. I didn't feel anything for it. You know, it doesn't stay, my friends don't see it. One day, a friend of mine gave me a picture that was taken of a train I did in Toronto, in San Diego. And then I was like, what? This train was in San Diego? Some guy saw this in San Diego? And then I was hooked. I was like, oh my God. Like, it's got such a big scope. It's not just my city. It's not just Toronto. It's not just Ottawa. It's not just Montreal. It's like, this can go all the way down to like Guatemala. I think it suits the trains. Trains seem like these just big, silent, grumpy old rust buckets that are just slowly going from city to city and just sitting there.
Everybody, you know? Yeah. Okay. We missing one person. Close to go start. Yeah, that's a good one. Everybody. That is your last shot. Everybody. 1, 2. Thank you.
When I was a kid, younger, and I started doing things inside, like when I couldn't paint outside, it was like I'd only have 3 or 4 things that I was working on, like panels that were stretched up, and I would continue to go over. Like I would do a piece, and then a couple days later I would just do another piece on the same thing and keep it going. And then, of course, you know, like my mom would be like, "What happened to the painting? I love that thing you had done before." And it was just like really not being attached to this as an object, but more like a process, more like exploration. I don't really think of art as being like a tangible product, object sort of thing. It's a force, you know. And then you're just on it for the ride, you know. You gotta like give to it, and it gives back.
Growing up in New York during those times in the 80s, you know, there was a lot of things going around. There was everybody was painting on the walls, doing pieces and painting on trains. Yeah, one of my first pieces I ever seen, I think it was a Tracy 168. Well, that was the one that kind of like put it in my face that you can do something with a spray can, you know, with colors and compose something. That was sort of my art school. It was New York and the apprenticeship of following somebody around and learning how to write your name. That's where I learned the ropes, I guess. When I was painting on the trains, it was always sort of like what the fuck is that shit? You know, like you would see it come by and it would make you move, or you know, like rub your eyes because it was vibrating in so much color. New York at the time was just basically New York for New York, you know. Nobody was really looking beyond, and anything that was outside of New York was whack, you know. You had the pioneers and the kings in New York, so it was like the Mecca. Those other artists like Lee or Crash and Days or A1, I would see them coming back from Europe and whatnot, and I was always wondering, like, yo, what's up in Europe, you know? So I had the opportunity to meet Bando, and on meeting him, he showed me all these pictures of what was going on the other side, you know, in France. And I liked the vibe. I liked what they were expressing. It was like different colors that I had never seen before. And it was just like a really good and strong energy. You had the best stylers here. You had Mode, you had the BBC, you had Locust, people coming from all over Europe, Shoe and Angel and the Chrome Angels, and you had Boxer, which was an incredible bomber, and people that were very supportive of this form of art. And we're looking at it as art and not just graffiti like, let's say, a lot of New Yorkers were. I was more or less first a bomber, somebody that was writing my name in calligraphy, to what I'm doing now, which is it's just an evolution. So when I came out here, it was, you know, the next step was really just to do paintings. Coming from where I come from and growing up the way I grew up, you know, I always had a thirst to express myself, and I felt good when I was painting, you know, and I was far away from reality of what else was going around. To make things better, I guess that's why I put a lot of colors. Makes me happy.